Amen. Just because we are separated due to this pandemic that's under God's control does not mean that we are not able to give God praise even in our homes and in this sanctuary as we join together from a distance. We have a lot to be thankful for. He is truly good to us. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silent before him.
Y'all sing along with me out there. Happy Mother's Day. Tragedies are a commonplace. All kinds of diseases are slipping away. The economy's down and you can't get enough pay. As for me, all I can say is thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me.
book of Proverbs, chapter 31, beginning in verse 10, on this Mother's Day. Blessings to all the mothers today. Amen. Reads as follows. Who can find the virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant's ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth the field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth out, not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. I'll stop there. May God have blessing to the reading and hearing of his holy word.
Amen. At such a time as this, I encourage you to be steadfast and unmovable, always abounding in his word. We don't need another political uprising. We don't need another calm. We're on the scene. What we need is a special word that will burn within our hearts and give
morning. As we delve into your word, speak to our hearts and make us better. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. We thank God for our ministers of music this morning, all of them. Tanisha and Glenn, Gehrig. We'll talk to us this morning from the second chapter of the Gospel of John. Beginning in verse 1. There's a word for us there. And the third day, there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, They have no wine. Jesus said unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother said unto the servants, Whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus said unto them, Fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he said unto them, Draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom and said unto him, Every man at the beginning does set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. We got a lesson to the reading and the hearing and preaching of his holy word. I want to talk about a real mother in the best sense of the word. This gospel passage describes the very first opening miracle. First sign is what the gospel really says, not miracle, in the Gospel of John, which sets the stage for all that's going to follow. And in this text, it tells us that on the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. Now, there's all kind of discussion about where Cana is today. Nobody knows where Cana is. It doesn't matter. There was a Cana then, and there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. Amen. And it says that Jesus' mother was there, the mother of Jesus. Amen. It didn't say Mary was there and Jesus too. It said the mother of Jesus was there. Amen. Her importance does not derive from her own self. It derives from being connected to Jesus. Amen. I wish I had a praying church here. And it says that Jesus and his disciples were also invited. Now, the beginning of the gospel is a celebration. It is a party, shall we say, of celebration about a marriage. Oh, yes, it is. And so we kind of maybe get the idea that being a Christian is not about being gloomy and glum, shall we say. It's not about walking around with a long face. The beginning of the gospel sets the stage to let us know that it's really about celebration. Amen. Amen. And they ran out of wine. Well, yes, they did. And there are those who say that this was just grape juice. I'm not of that opinion. The Greek word used in this text means literally wine. Amen. They ran out of wine, and the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. Now here's the first quality of a real mother. She notices when something is missing for her own child as well as others in the community. Amen. A real mother notices lack. Yes. Now that may sound pretty trite and commonsensical, but actually, unfortunately, we live in an age when mothers don't even notice the needs of their children. Addictive things have taken over so much that mothers can be absent from their children for days at a time. So a real mother notices when something is missing for their child and others. Oh, yes, she does. And she knew who to talk to about it. That's another quality. A real mama knows who to go to for help for the children when there's not enough. Oh, yes. Thank God for praying mothers who know who to talk to. And it wasn't a long prayer. It was a true prayer of faith. Amen. Mary just said, son, they don't have any wine. Amen. That sounds like a kind of confident faith. A faith that knows that this Lord will listen to me. Amen. Yeah. If we can model ourselves after Mary this morning, we ought to know that we are connected to Jesus. Yes, sir. And that he wants to do for us, even when it seems like he doesn't. Amen. Oh, yeah. You have to know that you belong to him. You can't talk to God like some distant, far distant person. You talk to the Lord like you already belong to him. Amen. She said, son, they don't have any wine. Woman, what does that have to do with me and you? Right. The word Burnett in here is a reference to the Greek term used in the Old Testament for Eve. Mary represents the church here. It's not disrespect, it's symbolic. Woman, what does that have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. This celebration is about the hour that's coming eventually. And Jesus kind of sets it up by seeming to put his mother off. His mother said to the servants, whatever he says, you do that. Now, a good mother is not a mother who tries to control too much what their children decide. It's a mother who knows to tell the child to do what God tells you to do. Amen. You have to nurture the child so much in God that they are open to doing what the Lord wants them to do. Yes. Oh, yes. And that can't be a forced process. It's got to flow out of who the mother really is. If the mother's secure in her own relationship with the Lord and has nurtured in a witnessing way that in the children, then she can say to the kids, do what Jesus tells you to do. Amen. And if Mary represents the church here, the role of the church is not to go around and tell every single individual, here's what you need to do. It's to tell them to do what Jesus tells you to do. The church is not a controlling institution that's all about guilt and shame. The church is about freeing you up to do what Jesus wants you to do. Oh, yes. And then the servants heard Mary, and then they went and got water pots of stone that Jesus told them to get the pots. And Jesus said, fill the water pots with water. The Lord works miracles often by starting with what we already have. Yeah. Yes. You got to be grateful for the water before he can turn it into wine. Amen. Some of us don't, we're not like the Syrophoenician woman. When she wanted God, the Lord, to cast a demon out of her 12-year-old daughter, she said, she asked the Lord to do it, and he said, it's not good for the for the little puppies around the table talking about because she was a Gentile, to get the food, the bread of the children who sit at the table. And the woman said, "Yea, Lord, but cannot the dogs eat the crumbs?" You got to have appreciating crumbs faith.
Amen.
You got to appreciate the water before he'll turn it into wine.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Well, I wish I had a prayer church. And of course they got the jars and filled them up with water. And he said, "Draw it out now." And when they drew water out of those pots that were used for Jewish purification, it was the purest wine. Now, at this stage of Jewish history, there's a commentary here. It's like Judaism had become kind of plain water. In fact, the law always was water, God-given water. Yes, it is. We need the law to tell us how bad we are. It's God-given. But it was plain water. And Jesus can turn the plain water of religion and law into the wine of grace.
Amen.
Oh, yes, he can. Mother didn't want her child just to follow custom. Mother wants her child to get the new wine of grace.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And he said, "Draw it out now and take it to the governor of the feast." So they took the water that was now wine with the finest wine. It was not cheap stuff. And took it to the water, took it to the ruler of the feast. Amen. I don't really know how I used to drink that cheap stuff when I was a young college student. We didn't have much money in the dorm at Xavier, New Orleans when I was there. And that was when I partied with a bunch of people. So we put our quarters together and go get some Boone's Farm or Thunderbird or something along those lines. That was the worst stuff. Have I got a witness? I don't know why we thought we were having such fun when you could get shown up sick off that stuff. Anyway, the finest wine was what this was. I don't know, Rothschilds or something. The finest wine was taken to the head waiter, and then he went to the bridegroom and said, "Now most folks bring out the cheap stuff first. Right. And when folk get good, not the cheap stuff, the good stuff first. Amen. When everybody gets good and drunk," that's right, which is what the text says. It didn't say well drunk. It said when everybody gets drunk. That's what the text really says in Greek. Amen. Then they bring out the cheap wine. But you have saved the good wine until last. All of this is from doing what Mary told him to do. Yes. Amen. Do what Jesus says to do. Amen. Jesus does not put out the good wine first. No, sir. Anything that God is about, it takes time and patience to get to. Amen. Have I got a witness? Yes, sir. You got to trust that God is going to turn your water into wine, and be thankful for the water while you're on the journey. Amen. Oh, yeah. Thank God that they listened to Jesus. And the man knew that this was some good stuff. Amen. I lived a life under law for a long time, trying to be a good boy. I was just wading in water. Am I right about it? Amen. But I came to a point where I ran out of my own ability to wade into the religion and law. Amen. And my water turned to wine. Yes. During a certain February, a cold day in February, late February, I was out in a field walking around. Oh, yes, I was. And I had an encounter with Jesus. And the water of repetitious behavior turned into the wine of joy and love and grace. The water of depression turned into the wine of true happiness. Have I got a witness? Amen. The water of just going through the motions turned into the wine of joy and true grace. Have I got a witness? Talking about a good mother this morning. My mother truly was a good mother, because what she did was point us in the direction of Jesus. Have I got a witness? Amen. I'm so glad this morning to say that I am a product of a praying mother. And I know many of us are still living off of mama's prayers. Have I got a witness? My mother knew who to talk to about me. Oh, yes, she did when I was young and straying from the path. Mama told me to do what Jesus says do. Have I got a witness? And prayed me into a place where I could hear what the Lord was saying. Oh, yes, he did. Jesus himself turned water into wine on a hill called Calvary. Oh, yes, he did. The water of tradition, the water of the law of Moses was turned into the grace and wine of the new covenant. Yes, it was. Jesus gave himself, bowed his head and died. Yes, he did. And water was turned into wine on that Sunday morning. On the third day, there was a wedding. Yes, there was. The Master from Galilee wed the new Eve, the church. On the third day morning, the first fruits of a new creation got up. And now we're in a third day revival. Have we got a witness? I don't care how long this Friday lasts of the virus in the air. Sunday's coming, y'all. Yes, it is. The third day morning is coming. Oh, yes, it is. Glory to his name. Oh, yes. Amen. I'm ready. When I think about the hour, then I know what I must do. When I think about what God has done for me, I will open up my heart to everyone I see and say, Jesus Christ is the way. We'll stop right there. If there's anybody today who needs to accept Jesus Christ as the real way in your life, we invite you to come. He's waiting just for you. He thought about you on the cross. Oh, yes, he did. He thought about every single human being. Only a Christ could do that. As he hung there in shame, bearing our sin, if you've been weighted down and you felt empty and like life has no meaning, accept Jesus this morning. It does not take on rational meaning, but it does give you joy and purpose. Oh yes. Come to him today. Call the number 520-884-1569 on this Mother's Day. Come to Jesus. If you already know him, you don't have a church home and you want to join the Trinity family, call that number 520-884-1569. God keep you is my prayer. Let us pray. And now unto him who is able to keep us from falling and to present us faultless before his presence with exceeding joy. To the only wise God our Savior be all glory, honor, dominion, and majesty, henceforth, now, and forevermore. And all the people said, Amen.
Amen.